About 6 or 7 years ago, back when I was still a student and thought I had people mostly figured out, I saw a breakup unfold that permanently changed the way I look at patience, anger, and revenge. At the time, it didn't register as anything special. Relationships fail all the time, especially when you're young. People cheat, people lie, people drift apart. What made this different wasn't what happened, but how long it took, how quiet it was, and how deliberately it was executed. Only later did I realize that what I had witnessed wasn't a breakup in the usual sense. It was a carefully timed ending. John and Jane met in high school, and almost immediately they became one of those couples everyone noticed. Not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they seemed balanced. John was calm, reliable, and quietly intelligent. He wasn't the kind of guy who demanded attention, but he earned respect without trying. Teachers trusted him, classmates liked him, and even people who didn't know him well tended to assume he was decent. He dressed simply, spoke thoughtfully, and had a habit of listening more than talking. Jane, by contrast, commanded attention effortlessly. She was beautiful in a way that didn't go unnoticed. Long brown hair, confident posture, sharp eyes, and a strong, athletic build shaped by years of horseback riding. Riding wasn't something she did. It was who she was. She had her own horse, one she'd raised since it was young, and she spoke about it with an intensity that bordered on reverence. Early mornings at the stables, competitions, injuries, victories, her entire schedule revolved around that animal. If you scroll through her social media, you'd think she lived in the saddle. Jane could be warm, funny, and magnetic if she liked you. If she didn't, she could be dismissive and cutting without ever raising her voice. Our class was socially divided almost straight down the middle, and Jane sat at the center of one half. People wanted her approval, and some were quietly afraid of losing it. Despite that edge, when she was with John, she seemed different, calmer, kinder. For almost a year, they looked genuinely happy, and most of us assumed the relationship had softened her rougher traits. John's best friend, Jim, had been part of his life long before Jane. They'd known each other since elementary school, bonded by years of shared experiences, stupid mistakes, and loyalty. Jim was taller, broader, and louder than John, the type of guy who filled a room just by standing in it. He joked more, drank more, and acted first and thought later. Back in high school, Jim had also had a crush on Jane. That wasn't exactly a secret. But when Jane chose John, Jim backed off immediately. No bitterness, no drama. He dated other girls and never crossed the line. As far as anyone could tell, whatever feelings he'd had were buried. The first cracks appeared during our second year after high school. Jane became more irritable, more dismissive, and noticeably less patient with John. She complained more, snapped faster, and seemed constantly dissatisfied. Little things irritated her. The way John spoke, the jokes he made, the plans he suggested. She began treating him less like a partner and more like an accessory. At parties, when guys flirted with her, she stopped shutting it down immediately. She didn't encourage it outright, but she didn't stop it either. She liked the attention, especially when John wasn't around. What made it uncomfortable was that some of this attention was directed at Jim. Not openly, never in front of John, but enough that people noticed. Lingering glances, inside jokes, standing too close for too long. Those of us who saw it weren't sure what to do. We talked among ourselves first, wondering if we were imagining things. Eventually, a few of us mentioned it to John carefully, framing it as concern rather than accusation. John listened. He didn't get angry or defensive. He admitted things felt off and said he'd talk to her. And he did. He tried to fix it. He became more attentive, more accommodating, more patient. He made more time for her, asked fewer questions, and brushed off her sharper comments. He told himself relationships went through phases, that stress and routine could change people, that love meant effort. He loved her, and he believed effort could bridge the growing distance. Then Christmas break came. John went to visit family, like he did every year. Jane stayed in town. There was a party hosted by an old friend from high school, and both Jane and Jim went. On paper, it was harmless. Familiar faces, cheap alcohol, nostalgia. Stories about old teachers, old relationships, and how everyone had changed. But alcohol has a way of loosening boundaries people spend years maintaining. They drank too much. The flirting crossed a line. One bad decision followed another. It wasn't romantic or meaningful, just reckless and selfish. The next morning, when the alcohol wore off and reality set in, Jim panicked. He didn't try to rationalize it or convince himself it didn't matter. He didn't wait to see if Jane would tell John first. He got in his car and drove straight to John's house, barely giving himself time to think. Jim told John everything. He didn't soften the truth or hide behind excuses. He said he hated himself for what he'd done and understood that John never wanted to see him again. He even told John he could hit him if he wanted and that he wouldn't fight back. Jim was bigger and stronger than John, but guilt had stripped him of pride. John didn't hit him. He barely reacted at all. He listened, asked a few quiet questions, and told Jim to leave. Later, John admitted that what hurt most wasn't just the betrayal. It was how believable Jim was. Jim had never lied to him before. A few days later, on New Year's Eve, John confronted Jane. He didn't accuse her outright. He didn't mention Jim's confession. He simply asked what happened at the party. Her reaction was immediate and explosive. She cried, raised her voice, accused Jim of trying to take advantage of her, and claimed he'd only managed a kiss. She demanded to know how John could even suspect her, how he could believe she would do something like that behind his back. There was no hesitation in her story. No cracks, just outrage and indignation. John apologized. He told her he believed her. They spent New Year's Eve together like nothing was wrong, laughing, drinking, kissing at midnight. To everyone else, they looked fine. Inside, something had shut down. John later said that night felt like watching a play he already knew the ending to. From that moment on, he stopped trying to save the relationship. He didn't confront her again. He didn't withdraw. He waited. They had started dating at the end of January, and their anniversary was approaching. John decided that would be the end. He didn't rush. He didn't lash out. He planned. On the day of their anniversary, Jane spent the afternoon out, getting ready. When she came home, she walked into what looked like a perfect romantic evening. Rose petals leading from the door, candles, soft music. John loved cooking, and he had put real effort into it. The meal was elegant, carefully plated, and clearly made with skill. A delicate salad followed by a perfectly cooked steak. Jane took a few bites and smiled, telling him how much she loved it. That's when John looked at her and said calmly, "See, I told you you'd love her, even on your plate." For a second, she didn't understand. Then the meaning hit her all at once. The color drained from her face. She dropped her fork, stood up so fast her chair tipped over, and ran to the bathroom, already gagging. She was screaming incoherently, convinced she had just eaten her horse. When she reached the toilet, she found the lid duct taped shut. On top of it was a braid of hair, the same kind she used to tie into her horse's mane. She collapsed on the floor, crying and vomiting, repeating her horse's name over and over. John didn't rush. He didn't shout. He sat at the table and finished his meal slowly, methodically. When he was done, he gathered his things, went to the bathroom doorway, and told her the truth. He said he had known about her cheating since the day after it happened, that he knew she lied, that it was over, and that this was her anniversary present. He wished her a happy anniversary and left. The horse was never harmed. The meat wasn't her horse, though it was horse meat. The braid was real, but hair grows back. Jane locked herself in her apartment for days, refusing to answer messages. Friends worried. Rumors spread. It took nearly a week before someone from the stable called her, confused about why she hadn't shown up to ride, for her to finally learn the truth. By then, the damage was already done. John never contacted her again. He changed his routine, avoided places she might be, and quietly moved on. He and Jim repaired their friendship slowly, carefully, with long conversations and a lot of guilt. Jane lost more than a boyfriend. She lost control of the story she told herself. Years later, people still talk about it when the topic of breakups comes up. Some say John went too far. Others say she deserved it. I don't know where the truth lies. All I know is that I've never seen anger expressed so quietly or revenge carried out with such patience. And it taught me that sometimes the most devastating endings don't come with shouting or slammed doors, but with silence, timing, and the certainty that the person walking away will never look back.